अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन। क्या हाल है आप लोगों के? Sir, do you want to hear a joke? Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm good, alhamdulillah. Walaikum assalam. Do you really view someone has an Please don't forget P3 students. Yeah, don't worry about it. P3 के exam में time है बेटा. Once I'm done with these papers, then inshallah I'll give time to P3, add maths and S1. चलें, so let's begin. Wait, someone कोई मुझे joke सुनाने वाला था. What happened to that? Did I miss it? I don't see a joke anywhere. Okay, here it is. Why should you never talk to X? It just goes on and on forever. I don't get it. Is this applicable for add maths? No, it's not applicable for add maths. So can you please explain prime functions? There's no such thing as prime function. Prime we put to show that we have differentiated it. Okay? There is no such thing as prime functions. What happened to your mic on P1? What happened to it? If you're talking about M1, the M1 mein, I don't know, internet was just messing up. Abhi I don't know how long it's going to work for. But let's not waste any more time. Let's begin. So in the last class, we were doing Sir, I was getting 67 marks. Beta, I can't just give you tips like that. I mean, I need to know where you're losing marks. अब मुझे क्या पता आपके marks क्यों नहीं आ रहे? Is it because you are not being able to complete the paper? ऐसे randomly मैं चलते फिरते कैसे किसी को tip दे दूँ यार? It's like going to a doctor and saying कि you know मेरे सर में दर्द है और मुझे दवा दे दें. अब भाई सर में दर्द क्यों है मुझे क्या पता? So why are you losing marks? I don't know. So best thing you can do is identify where you're losing marks and work on those topics. Simple as that. वालेकुम अस्सलाम. सर ने इग्नोर कर दिया. क्या इग्नोर कर दिया बेटा? Where's your question? Sir, I said, shall I leave stream because I had done concepts? Said yes. Then you started password 5 minutes after. Okay, that was not deliberate. Okay, I don't have anything against you. But anyway, it's your fault, bhai. Okay, now I'm gonna start. So here we are. Let me solve some questions where we have to deal with domain and range of composite function and some inverse functions. Okay, so let's begin. Let's solve this one. F and G are functions. This, by the way, is May June 2019 paper 12, and this is question number 12 of the worksheet. Okay? Let's see what it says. Functions f and g are defined by f of x equals to 3x minus 2 and g of x equals to 2x plus 3 over x minus 1. Obtain an expression. No, we're not doing transformations today. We're going to do transformations inshallah in the next stream. Okay? Obtain an expression for f inverse of x and g inverse of x stating the value of x for which g inverse of x is not defined. Okay, so let's start with f inverse of x. So y is equals to 3x minus 2 Let's make x the subject. So y plus 2 upon 3 equals to x, which means f inverse of x. F inverse of x equals x plus 2 upon 3. Okay. Now let's do the same for g. Always look at the amount of space that you're given. So we're given plenty of space. So for g, we're going to do 2x plus 3 over x minus 1. Let's cross multiply. xy minus y equals to 2x plus 3. Now let's get all the x's on one side. So you have xy minus 2x, which is equal to y plus 3. Let's take x common. So what do we have? We have y minus 2, which is equal to y plus 3. Now let's make x the subject. X is equals to y plus 3 over y minus 2. Okay, which you should go ahead and write as g inverse. So g inverse of x equals to x plus 3 over x minus 2. X plus 3 over x minus 2. Okay. Now, next is, the question is asking, okay, what is stating the value of x for which g inverse of x is not defined. So you can clearly see that it will not be defined if the denominator is equals to 2. Okay. Acha, what's that? xy minus 2x. Oh yeah, I have, मैंने इसको y लिख दिया, but common से ही निकाला. There you go. xy minus 2x. Now it's correct. Okay. Now, that's it. Now let's do part B. Part 2 says solve the equation f of g of x equals to 7 upon 3. Okay, f of g of x, which is equal to 7 upon 3. Okay. That means we will have to find out the composite function. Okay. F of g of x equals to 7 upon 3. F of g of x means that you plug in function g in function f. ठीक है, वैसे इसको करने का एक और भी तरीका है. I'll explain that, see if it makes sense. If it doesn't, then you can do it this way only. So f of g of x means that we plug in function g in function f. So that means 3. Now in place of x, you have 2x plus 3. Then you have x minus 1. So that's 3x minus 2. What is this equal to? This is equal to 7 upon 3. Okay, so this is also pretty normal, pretty straightforward. So I think let's do it this way only. So multiply the numerator by 3. So that becomes 6x plus 9 over x minus 1 equals to, what is 7 upon 3 plus 2? 7 divided by 3 plus 2. That's equal to 13 upon 3. Okay. Now cross multiply. As a last part, देखो. Remember, if you have a function, इसको हम बोलते हैं a rational function, okay, where you have x in the denominator, you have to make sure that the denominator is not equal to 0. Why? Because if the denominator is equal to 0, then what happens is the whole thing becomes undefined. So how will you make sure that the denominator is never equal to 0? By making sure x is never equal to 2. So there are a lot of questions related to function transformation which require sequence. Is there any approved sequence from maths? Suppose there is any, one stretch to reflect. Follow BODMAS. Okay, when I teach you guys reflection, I'll explain. Okay, when I teach you guys transformation, I'll explain. Okay, now let's cross multiply. So if you cross multiply, because it's not just BODMAS, when there are vertical transformations, we follow BODMAS. When there are horizontal transformations, we have the option of following BODMAS, or we do the opposite of BODMAS. Okay, so there is a sequence when we're doing transformation. I'll explain. So 3 times 6x, what's that equal to? That's equal to 18x plus 27 is equals to 13x minus 13. Okay. Now let's see what do we get. Let's shift all the x's on one side. So we have the 18x minus 13x, which is equal to 5x, minus 13 minus 27, that's equal to minus 40. So that means x is equals to minus 8. And there you go. That is your answer. Okay. Yes, beta, transformation is obviously part of your syllabus. Okay. Now, let's do this. The function g is defined by g of x equals to x squared minus 2. What minus 2? जी माइनस 2 को आप खा गए. कौन सा माइनस 2? अरे यार वो मैंने इधर शिफ्ट कर दिया ना. I shifted this minus 2 across the equals to sign. That's how it became 13 upon 3. Okay, I know I do make errors like that. I agree, but this time at least I didn't. Okay, now The function g is defined by g of x equals to x squared minus 6x plus 7 for x is greater than 4. By first completing the square, find an expression for g inverse of x and state the domain of g inverse. Okay. Domain of g inverse is what? Domain of g inverse will basically be equal to range of g. How will we find out range of g? We'll find out range of g by first finding the function in completed square form. By first bringing this function into completed square form. So let's do that. We have x squared minus 6x. Let's leave a bit of space and then write plus 7. Okay, what are we going to do now to bring it in completed square form? We're going to do plus 3 squared, then we're going to do minus 3 squared. So this part of the expression will now compress and become x minus 3, the whole thing squared. This will be 7 minus 9. And what is 7 minus 9 equal to? That's equal to minus 2. And this is what? This is g of x in completed square form. Okay? Now, let's make x the subject. Since I want to find out the inverse, let's make x the subject. So let's equate it to y. Y equals to x minus 3, the whole thing square, minus 9. Let's step by step make x the subject. So y plus 9 equals x minus 3, the whole thing square. Let's take the square root on both sides. So we have plus minus square root of y plus 9 equals x minus 3. Now let's make x the subject. So if I make x the subject, it's equal to plus minus square root of y plus 9. क्या हो गया? Minus 2. So you wrote minus 9. Oh, okay. Minus 2. Minus 2, minus 2, minus 2. ठीक है. Y plus 2, 2, 2, 2. ठीक है. So plus minus y plus 2 plus 3. Now the final step, which is going to be g inverse of x equals, now tell me, are we going to go with plus sign or are we going to go with minus sign? So g inverse of x is equals to, let's write it like this, 3 plus minus square root of x plus 2. Okay, achha, before you answer that question, after looking at this, what is the range of g of x? The range of g of x will be that it's greater than minus 2. Okay, the range of g of x will be that it's greater than or equal to minus 2. But wait a minute. Is that correct? The range of g of x will be greater than or equal to minus 2? No. Because the domain is greater than 4. So क्या करते हैं हम इस तरह के questions में? Just go the extra mile and make a rough sketch. Okay? Just go the extra mile and make a rough sketch. Okay? Achha, the range of this function is going to be what? The range of this function is going to be the domain of g of x. Okay, so we want this function to be greater than 4. How will you make sure that it's greater than 4? You will make sure that it's greater than 4 by making sure that you're always adding something to 3. So that is why you're going to have a plus sign. Okay, so I repeat. The inverse function must always be greater than 4. Why? Because that is what the domain of g of x was. So if the domain of g of x is greater than 4, that means the range of the inverse function must also be greater than 4. How will you make sure of that? Will you make sure of that with the plus sign or minus sign? Obviously with the plus sign. Okay? Achha, up there's more to this question. We also have to, although we're not supposed to give the range, but we are supposed to give the domain. How will we give the domain? It's a good idea to make a rough sketch. Okay? It's always a good idea to go the extra mile. So there was supposed to be a minus 2 here. That means this curve has a turning point at 3 comma minus 2. Okay, so this curve has a turning point at 3 comma minus 2. That means it's a rough sketch. Remember, keep that in mind. So 3 comma minus 2 means that it's probably going to be somewhere over here. Okay, so this is what the curve looks like. Okay, this is what the curve looks like. It's just a rough sketch. Keep that in mind. 3 comma minus 2. Here it is. Here is 3. Here is minus 2. Now, what is the domain? The domain is x is greater than 4. So let's find out what we get when we plug in 4. Okay, let's find out g of 4. G of 4 means 4 minus 3, the whole thing square, which means 1 squared minus 1, that's equal to minus 1. That means if you plug in 4 into this function, okay, let's assume 4 is somewhere over here. If you plug in 4 into this function, what do you get as a result? You get minus 1 as a result. Okay, so plugging in 4 gives us minus 1. And because the domain is greater than 4, that means the range of g of x will be greater than minus 1. Okay, and if the range of g of x is greater than minus 1, that will now be the domain of the inverse function, which means the domain of the inverse function is x is greater than minus 1. And this is your answer. Okay, I repeat. We were supposed to find out the domain of G inverse. How will we find out the domain of G inverse? That's going to be equal to the range of G. How will I find out the range of G? This is the function, this is the domain. So make a rough sketch, see where 4 is, look at the corresponding value of 4, it's -1. Since it says greater than 4, that means the range of this function will be greater than -1. Okay? Now, since the range of this function is greater than -1, that will now be equal to the domain of the inverse function, which is why the domain is x is greater than -1. ठीक हो गया? Will I solve the February March वाला paper? I will not solve it on YouTube because YouTube पे solve करने के मसले होते हैं. So that is why. ठीक है? No, functions involving transformation is not done yet. That we will do inshallah in another stream. Okay. Let me find another question which involves the composite function. Yeah, let's do this one. So this is question number 16 of the worksheet, February, March 2020. Okay, now. Express 2x squared plus 12x plus 11 in the form of 2x plus a, the whole thing square plus b. क्या है आपका मैसेज? कहाँ है आपका मैसेज बेटा? Just send the message again. मैं कहाँ ढूँढूँ? अच्छा, sir, if you have October, November 2025, paper 12, please solve question 9. That is functions, hard one. अच्छा, चलो ठीक है. I'll do that. I'll remind me towards the end. I'll do that. ठीक है. Express 2x squared plus 12x plus 11 in the form of 2 bracket open. अच्छा, अब Aliza इनाम है ना? Aliza, you can stop spamming now. I've read your message. So let's take 2 common. We've done this already. How is that possible? मैं कोई गलत PDF तो नहीं खोला हुआ? I don't think we've done this. Nope, we haven't done this. ठीक है? Okay. No, we haven't done this. We haven't done this. Maybe we've done a question similar to this, but I don't think we've done this exact question. See, because this PDF contains all the questions that we've solved so far, and this is definitely not... I haven't solved this. तो कर लेते हैं ना, क्या हो गया? Maybe, yeah, maybe in some other stream. Maybe in some other stream, I don't know. But let's do it. So let's take 2 common. If I do that, we have x squared plus 6x. Let's leave a bit of space. And then let's write plus 11. Okay, now what do we add? We add 3 square. And what do we subtract? We also subtract 3 square. So this part of the expression will compress and become x plus 3 the whole thing square. And then you have a minus 9. Do not forget that there is a 2 that you have to multiply the terms inside the bracket with, and there is a plus 11 towards the end. This is from February, March 2020, paper 12. So this now becomes 2 bracket x plus 3, the whole thing squared, minus 18 plus 11. ये कौन है जो अभी तक पूछ रही है? Start कब होगी बेचारा? I think stream के शुरू वाले part पे रुका हुआ है. खैर. So here's what we have. We have 2x plus 3, the whole thing squared, minus 7. Okay? But I've already done equation of circles. I don't know how many times I've done it, but I've already done that. I'm not going to be repeating something I've done. Okay? So here we go. We have expressed it in completed square form. So then the question says, the function f is defined by f of x equals to 2x squared plus 12x plus 11, exactly the same one as before. For x is lesser than or equal to minus 4. Find an expression for f inverse of x and state the domain of f inverse. Okay, so it's the same function. That means we can use the completed square form. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to set it equal to y. So let's set it equal to y. So we have y plus 7 upon 2, which is equal to x plus 3, the whole thing square. Now, how do you get rid of the square? You get rid of the square by taking the square root on both sides. And every time we take out the square root on both sides, there is a plus minus. So that means x plus 3 is equals to plus minus square root of y plus 7 upon 2. Okay? Now, let's make x the subject. So x is equals to minus 3 plus minus square root of y plus 7 upon 2. Now let's do the final step, which will be f inverse of x. F inverse of x equals to minus 3 plus minus square root of x plus 7 upon 2. ठीक है, अब मुझे बताओ, we want to make sure that the range of this function is the same as the domain of f. That means you want to make sure that f inverse of x is lesser than or equal to minus 4. Now, how will you make sure that this function is always lesser than or equal to minus 4? With a plus sign or with a minus sign? Question for you guys. How will you make sure that the inverse function, the range of the inverse function is always lesser than or equal to minus 4? With a plus sign or with a minus sign? With a minus sign, obviously, because you have to subtract something from minus 3 again to make sure that it's less than minus 4. Achha, now we also have to figure out the domain. Okay, so for the domain, what do? We go the extra mile. The domain of f inverse will be equal to what? Will be the same as the range of f. Okay, so the domain of f inverse will be the same as the range of f. So let's figure out the range of f, which means we have to make a rough sketch. And the rough sketch is such that this function will have a turning point at minus 3, minus 7. That means it's quite on the negative side. How did I figure that out? Amna, please watch the last stream. Okay, by looking at the domain given to us, we can figure out the range of the inverse function. And if you want to make sure the range of the inverse function is less than minus 4, think to yourself, should I put a plus sign or should I put a minus sign? The answer is minus, because minus 3 minus something will always give you a value, which should give you a value less than minus 4. Okay, so this curve has turning point at minus 3, minus 7. That means it's somewhere over here, and its y-intercept is 11, so that means it's probably somewhere over here. Okay? Yeah, I'm talking about the plus minus thingy also, Amna. I'm also talking about the plus minus thingy. We decide the plus minus by looking at the domain, and I've also given a plan B in the last stream. Okay, check out the last stream. Last stream में मैंने plan B भी दिया. If you can't figure it out by looking at the domain, there's a plan B. Okay, now the question says x is lesser than or equal to minus 4. So let's find out the corresponding value at minus 4. Okay, which means that I will have to plug in minus 4 into the function. So if I plug in minus 4, let's see what happens. So 2 bracket minus 4 plus 3, close it, the whole thing square, minus 7. So we get minus 5. That means minus 4 ने हमें क्या दिया? Minus 4 ने हमें दिया minus 5. Okay, now if minus 4 gives us minus 5 and the domain is x is lesser than or equal to minus 4, that means we're only looking at this part of the function. Okay, we're only looking at this part of the function, which means looking at this part of the function, what is the range of f? The range of f of x is that it's greater than or equal to minus 5. If the range of f of x is that it's greater than or equal to minus 5, that means the domain of f of x, of f inverse of x, will also be greater than or equal to minus 5. That's it. Okay, so I repeat. The domain of f inverse will be the same as the range of f. To find out the range of f, you make a rough sketch, you plug in the relevant domain, and you see what is the corresponding range. So we made a rough sketch of this quadratic curve, which has a turning point at minus 3, minus 7. We plugged in minus 4, and the corresponding value at minus 4 is minus 5. And because the question says x is lesser than or equal to minus 4, that means we're only allowed to look at this part of the curve, and this will just go on forever. So how do I determine the sign? Okay, pay attention. If you're only looking at this part of the curve, what do you see the output as? You see the least value of y to come out as minus 5, and every other value of y will be what? What do you think? Will always be greater than minus 5. So therefore, the range of this function is greater than or equal to minus 5. Okay, and since this is the range of f of x, it will be the domain of f inverse of x. ठीक हो गया? Okay, now let's do this question. For the case where k is equal to minus 1, solve the equation f of g of x equals to 193. Okay, k is equal to minus 1. That means x is... अच्छा बेटा, ये प्लीज़ आंसर करने से बेहतर ही होता है कि आप अपना सवाल ही दोबारा भेज दें. ठीक है, अब मैं चैट में बैठा ढूंढता रहा हूँ कि भाई आपने कहाँ सवाल भेजा है अपना. So just send your question again. Okay? Alright, now what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to do f of g of x. Okay. f of g of x which is equal to 193. वैसे मैं आप लोगों को इसका एक हैक बताऊं. कॉम्पोजिट फंक्शन नहीं बनाना, नहीं बनाते, ठीक है. Let's take f across the equals to sign. Can we do that? If I take the function f across the equals to sign, what happens? What happens when you take any function across the equals to sign? No, I will not do transformation in this stream. Okay, today we're just going to do a long stream focusing on this only. So what happens if I take f across the equals to sign? It becomes inverse. Okay, so I hope you all agree that it becomes inverse. Okay, so that way I won't have to make the composite function. That means, you know what I'm looking at? I'm looking at g of x to be equal to f inverse 193. ठीक है. नहीं f dash नहीं, इसको हम f inverse ही बोलेंगे. g of x is equals to f inverse of 193. Now, have we already found f inverse? Yes, we have. We've already found f inverse. Here is f inverse. Okay, now let's plug in 193. So g of x क्या है? G of x है 2x minus 3. ठीक है, and this will be equal to f inverse of 193. That means minus 3 minus, now what is 193 plus 7? That's 200. 200 upon 2, what's that equal to? That's equal to 100. ठीक है. So this becomes 2x minus 3 is equals to minus 3 minus 10, which means 2x is equals to minus 13 plus 3, which means 2x is equals to minus 10, which means x equals to minus 5. Now, is this acceptable? Yes, it is acceptable. Okay, it is acceptable. Why? Because the value of x is supposed to be lesser than or equal to minus 1, which it is acceptable. If let's say maybe we had ended up with a quadratic equation, we would have then solved for the two values and we would have picked the one which falls inside the domain. Okay, so can you tell if हमें competing square की expression नहीं दी हुई, then how do we use comparing method to convert it to competing square? But if you don't know the comparing method, then use the regular method. F dash is f prime, which is the derivative of the original function. Yep, that is correct. So I've already answered that. So it's a question that we have to write every answer correct to 3 significant figures, or just write every non-exact answer correct to 3 significant figures. You're a lefty? Yep, I'm a lefty. Okay, now state the largest value of k possible for the composite function to be defined. Now remember, what do we use? We use redo. Redo is what we use. But it's not going to give us plus minus because we already decided that when we were taking the inverse, we're going to stick to the minus sign. Okay, so we already decided that when we're taking the inverse, we're going to stick to the minus sign. Okay. Okay, so state the largest value of k for the composition of fg to be defined. Okay, now fg, remember the rule redo. Redo means the range of the inner function is equals to, should be equal to the domain of the outer function. Okay, so this will be defined if the range of g is equals to the domain of f. Okay. Achha, what's the domain of f equal to? Let's write that down. The domain of f is given to us as x is lesser than or equal to minus 4. Okay, so the domain of f is given to us as x is lesser than or equal to minus 4. How will I find out the range of g? The range of g can simply be found by plugging in k into this function. Okay, so the range of g will be equal to 2k minus 3. I say, yeah. So to find out the range of function g, I will simply plug in k in this function. So that's going to be 2k minus 3. Now, what do we have to do? We have to make sure that they're both equal. We have to make sure that the domain of g, which is, or the range of g, which is the inner function, okay, range of the inner function is equals to the domain of the outer function. The range of g is equals to the domain of f. Okay, we have to make sure that they're both equal. So let's equate them, which means 2k minus 3 should be lesser than or equal to minus 4, which means 2k must be lesser than or equal to minus 1, which means k must be lesser than or equal to minus half. And if k is lesser than or equal to minus half, that means the largest possible value of k is minus 1 upon 2. ठीक है. अच्छा, अब क्या चल रहा है यहाँ पे? Let me see. Schedule for last days. बेटा just be productive. Simple as that. ठीक है. There is no wow schedule that I can give you. ठीक है. Just be productive. Simple as that. So does the sequence matter in transformation if they haven't told us to give the answer in sequence? It does matter. Okay, and when I do transformation, I can explain to you how it works. I can't just simply drop everything and explain that to you. Doesn't make sense. So my question was, okay, sometimes they don't tell us the expression. We need it convert when using completed square method. How do we use the completed comparing method in that case? Sometimes they don't tell us the expression. We need it convert. Okay, चलो अब कोई next सवाल आएगा ना, I will do it using the comparing method. ठीक है? Sir, someone told me that एक तो ये someone से जो सवाल शुरू होता है ना, इसका मतलब कि there is no authenticity in that. Sir, someone told me that we cannot make column in our answer, like if we got two values of x, we can't draw a line to trick. हाँ, बात सही है, you can't make a column. So, question number 14. Didn't I solve question number 14? I've already solved question number 14. Okay. Now I haven't solved this f of g of x, and I haven't solved f g inverse of x, but chalo, let's do it. Okay. Now as far as the, okay, you're talking about my stream schedule. I thought you were asking me schedule for yourself. Beta, I don't really plan that much ahead. Okay. But whatever I plan to do, I announce on my Instagram. Okay. Find an expression for f of g of x, giving an answer in the form of ax over bx plus c. Okay, f of g of x. अच्छा, इसका ये वाला सवाल जो है, the range part we solved in the last class. ठीक है, so here we are doing the composite function part now. So what do you mean by that column point? Could you give an example? Basically, you're not supposed to divide your space into columns and then work. That's what I meant. ठीक है? Okay, now f of g of x means that we plug in function g in function f. Okay, let's do that. Let's plug in function g in function f. That's what's going to give us f of g of x. So f of g of x is now equal to 3 over 2 bracket 1 upon x plus 2. ठीक है, तो ये x की जगह पे आ गया, and then the plus 1 from before. Okay, now, so what do we get? Here's what we get. 3 over 2 upon x plus 2 plus 1. I say 3 over 2 upon x plus 2 plus 1. Yep, that's correct. Okay, so what we get is 3 over 2 upon x plus 3. But the question is not happy with this. Okay? The question is not happy with this. So that means we now have to write it the way the question wants. Acha, what shortcut are you talking about, beta? We cannot, column or working gets messy otherwise. No need to make a column. Okay? No need to make a column. Oh yeah, plus 4, plus 4. Plus 4 plus 1, which is equal to 5. Plus 4 plus 1, which is equal to 5. Okay, thank you. No, the space is not limited. Okay, you have plenty of space given that you use it wisely. Okay. So the denominator is going to be, the LCM of the denominator is going to be x. So we have 2 plus 5x. And then you have 3. Okay. But I did that because it was equal to something. Okay. We can't do that over here because it's not equal to something. Had it been equal to something, I could have done that. Okay. But that's not the case here. So here's what we have. We have 3 divided by 2 plus 5x upon x. Okay. And what happens when you turn it into multiplication? When you turn it into multiplication, this is what it becomes. It now will become 3 into x over 2 plus 5x, which means it's now equal to 3x over 2 plus 5x. ठीक हो गया? Okay, now let's have a look at part 2. Find an expression for f g inverse of x, giving your answer in the same form as for part 2. Okay, so now that you have f of g of x, to find out its inverse, you do the exact same thing. You equate it equal to y and make x the subject. So I don't see how this question is such a big deal. So we equate it to y equals to 3x over 2 plus 5x. Let's cross multiply. So 2y plus 5xy equals to 3x. Let's get all the x's on one side. So that means 3x minus 5xy equals to 2y. Okay, let's take x common. So we have 3 minus 5y, which is equal to 2y. All right, let's make x the subject. अच्छा देख भी लिया करो कि कितना space दिया हुआ है. Okay, so you can plan accordingly. So x is equals to 2y over 3 minus 5y, which means when we do the last step, which is fg inverse of x, fg the whole thing inverse of x, or simply fg inverse is equals to 2x over 3 minus 5x. That's it. Drop down. Acha, I will see if I can come across a trigonometry related question, so I'll solve that also. I have sent you letter. Please read it when you get from your assistant. Where did you send me the letter? Sir, what if we have 2y direction? बेटा transformation को ज़रा hold कर लो ना, ठीक है? क्या tension है? मैं कराऊँगा कल या परसों. Whenever I do transformation, you can see how it works. ठीक है? So abhi I can't just drop everything and answer your transformation related questions. So be a little patient. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do question 17. Yeah, this Sunday, inshallah, there will be another mock. This Sunday, there will be another mock. Now, the function f and g are defined by f of x equals to x squared minus 4x plus 3 for x is greater than c, where c is a constant. Express f of x in the form of x minus a, the whole thing square plus b. अच्छा अभी कोई बोल रहा था कि कंपेयरिंग वाला मेथड कैसे यूज़ करेंगे, ठीक है? तो मैं यहाँ पे कर रहा हूँ कंपेयरिंग से. देख लो, आई होप इट हेल्प्स. सो एक्स स्क्वायर minus 4x plus 3, we're going to set this identical to x minus a, the whole thing square. कौन था जो बोल रहा था कि comparing वाला method कैसे करते हैं, comparing of coefficients? This is, I don't think this is my last stream of P1 functions. I don't know guys, ठीक है? I mean, don't आप लोग मुझसे ऐसे पूछते हैं, ऐसे पता नहीं मैंने सब कुछ प्लान किया हुआ है. So this year at least I'm not very organized as I was last year, so it's kind of haphazard. Yeah, there you go. So I'm doing the comparing method. You can have a look. So what we're doing is we're looking at the coefficients. So what's the coefficient of x? That's minus 4 on the left. What's the coefficient of x on the right? That's minus 2a. So minus 4 equals to minus 2a, which helps us solve the value of a, which is equal to 2. Then what else can we compare? The constant. The constant on the left is 3. The constant on the right is a square plus b. Constant basically means that the term which has no x or x square in it. So 3 is equals to, 3 is the constant on the left. Now we've already figured out the value of a. So 3 equals to a square plus b, which means 3 is equals to 2 square plus b. Sir, I was asking कि अगर हमें form नहीं दी होती, बेटा अगर form में नहीं दी हुई, तो what are you going to compare it with? तो obviously you're not going to use the comparing method. ठीक है, अगर फॉर्म नहीं दी हुई तो फिर आप कंपेयर ही नहीं करोगे, just do it the normal way. Okay, so what do we have? We now have x minus 2 the whole thing square plus b, which means x minus 2 the whole thing square minus 1. That's the answer. ठीक है. अच्छा, question 31 next. Okay, we'll do question 31 next. This is question number 17 in case you're wondering. Okay. Then it says it is given that f is a one-to-one function. State the smallest possible value of c. अब आपको क्या लग रहा है, ये इतनी सारी जगह आपको क्यों दी हुई है? Why do you think you're given so much space to solve this question? Why do you think? It's a one-mark question. Technically, to answer this question, even half a line is sufficient. But why do you think you're given so much space? No, not trial and error. So that you can quickly make a graph. ठीक है? वैसे तो you don't really have to make a graph to answer this question, but I will suggest that you do. Okay, so this is a quadratic curve which has turning points at 2, minus 1, and the y-intercept is positive 3. Okay, so that means it's going to be something like this. Okay, not that you have to get it exactly right. Now, C is this, x is greater than C. So if x is greater than C, and we have to make sure that it's a one-to-one function, How will I make sure that it's a one-to-one function? How will I make sure that this is a one-to-one function? I will make sure that it's a one-to-one function by making sure that it's greater than 2. Okay, which means the smallest possible value of c is equals to 2. Okay, but the other method is the method that I have been using where you add or subtract something. Okay, so there's no need to explain that. I've solved plenty of questions using that method. Okay, so x is greater than c basically means what is the smallest possible value that it should be greater than so that it remains one-to-one. Now, because it says greater than, that's why I'm going to start from the right-hand side. So if I start from the right-hand side, now if I'm starting from the right-hand side, that's because it's already written over here that x is greater than c. Okay, x is greater than c. It's already, the greater sign is already given to us. So obviously we're not gonna make it less than for no reason. So if I start from here, it's 1-to-1, 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 1-to-1 up until this point. After this point, now it's going to be many-to-one, 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 many-to-one. Okay, so that means the smallest possible value of x for which this function is a one-to-one is 2. Okay, please don't dive into what ifs. Let's focus on what is only. Okay, let's not dive into what ifs. Let's just focus on what is only. Okay, it is now given that c is equals to 5. Find an expression for f inverse of x and state the domain of 5. Okay, now, when do we say the graph passes the horizontal line test? To make sure that it's a one-to-one function. And also to make sure that it has an inverse. Okay, so if it's a one-to-one function, that means it also has an inverse. And for it to be a one-to-one function, it should pass the horizontal line test. Okay, okay, now, so in part C, it says it is now given that c is equals to 5. That means this is the function and c is now equal to 5. Okay, this is the function and c is now equal to 5. And we've already turned f of x into completed square form. So let's use that. Okay, now, what is f of x when we turn it into completed square form? F of x is equal to x minus 2 the whole thing square minus 1. X minus 2 the whole thing square. जवाब देते हैं बेटा, किस बात का जवाब देते हैं, पूरी बात बोल दें. Minus 1. Okay, now let's make it equal to y. So we have y equals to x minus 2 the whole thing square minus 1. Let's do y plus 1 equals to x minus 2 the whole thing square. So let's take the square root on both sides. So we have plus minus square root of y plus 1 equals to x minus 2, which means now if I make x the subject, x will be equal to 2 plus minus square root of y plus 1. Okay? Plus minus y plus 1, which means f inverse of x, which means f inverse of x is equals to 2 plus minus square root of x plus 1. Now tell me, will I go with the plus sign? Will I go with the minus sign? Considering that we want this function to always be greater than 5. Will I go with the plus sign or will I go with the minus sign? Considering that we want the range of this function to be equal to greater than 5. So I should definitely go with the plus sign. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now, we also have to find out the domain. Okay, we also have to find out the domain. Now, how will I find out the domain? Notice that we've already made a rough sketch. Okay, so let's use that. We were now told that x is greater than 5. So let's find out f of 5. F of 5 basically means 5 minus 2, which is 3. 3 square is 1. 3 square is 9, which, 5 minus 2 is 3. 3 square is 9. 9 minus 1 is equals to 8. So that means f of 5 is equals to 8. That means if you have 5, if you plug in 5, the output is equal to 8. Okay. And if the domain is greater than 5, that means this is the function, this is the part of the function that you're looking at. For this domain, which is x is greater than 5, okay, the range of the function is greater than 8. Okay, the range of the function is greater than 8. And if the range of the function is greater than 8, that means what will be the domain of the inverse function? The domain of the inverse function will also be greater than 8. ठीक हो गया? That's it. Easy does it. Okay, now find an expression for g of f of x and state the range of gf. Okay, g of f of x and state the range of gf. ये question बड़े मज़ेदार होते हैं. g of f of x. सर आप ना सही से क्या? Okay, g of f of x means that we plug in function f in function g. Okay, so let's do that. If I plug in function f in function g, that means it will now be 1 over f of x plus 1. Okay, this will be g of f of x. अच्छा, ये मैंने ऐसे क्यों लिखा है? I've written it like this because I will need this form to find out the range. Okay, once again, look at the amount of space that you're given. It's plenty, and you're given plenty of space for good reason, which you'll find out shortly. So g of f of x is now equal to this, is now equal to 1 upon x square minus 4x plus 3 in place of x, and then the plus 1 from before. Sir, you only have one possible video for transformation at your channel, but I have an entire playlist of functions in which I've done transformation, and then I have also done, what? I have also done multiple streams. ठीक है, check कर लो बेटा, मुझे नहीं याद. ठीक है, check कर लो. It's not that big of a deal. I don't exactly remember, but what I do remember, I've told you. Okay, so x square minus 4x plus 4. So this is g of f of x. Can we do x square plus 4x minus 4x plus 4? Yeah, you can do that, but why would you want to do that, Namna? I mean, there's no reason why not, but the question is, why would you want to do that? But khair, anyway. So, अब the question is, how will I find out the range of GF? उसके लिए, remember that what goes in function g is f, so that means now we need to know what is the range of f. Okay, we now need to know what is the range of f. Okay, what we need to know is the range of f. Okay, so here we have 1 over f of x plus 1. Okay, we have 1 over f of x plus 1. And remember, we've already figured that for this part, okay, for this part where c is equals to 5, the range of the function is greater than 8. Okay, range of this function is greater than 8. Okay, now let's start by plugging in 8. If I plug in 8, what happens? I know once again that it says greater than 8, but you can still plug in 8. Just make sure not to include the value that you get after you plug in 8. Okay, now let's plug in a value which is maybe slightly greater than 8. Okay, maybe let's plug in 10. Okay, so what do we have? We have 1 over 10 plus 1, which is equal to 1 over 11. What's happening to the value? The value is getting smaller. Let's plug in 1000. If you plug in 1000, you will have 1 over 1000 plus 1, which is equal to 1001. ठीक है, domain और range के question से सब घबराते ही इसीलिए हैं because they don't want to go the extra mile. Okay, now let's plug in infinity. If f of x is equal to infinity, that means now you have 1 over infinity plus 1, which basically means 1 over infinity, and 1 over infinity means that the whole thing approaches 0. Okay, the reason why you guys mess up domain and range questions is because you don't want to do this. You just want to shortcut some formula where you can just plug in the value and get the answer. That's not going to happen. Remember, I said earlier that you have to what? You have to get friendly with the function. I hope I wrote that down somewhere. Yeah. So you have to get friendly with the function through trial and error. If you're not going to get friendly with the function through trial and error, that means you're not going to be able to answer it. Okay, what pattern do we observe? We observe that the smallest value is 0 and the largest value is 1 over 9. Okay, the smallest value is 0 and the largest value is 1 over 9. Which means that the range of GF is as follows, is that it's greater than 0, since that's as small as it gets, and the greatest value is 1 over 9. There you go. When do we have to perform the infinity concept? Whenever you have something like this. Okay, whenever you have, see, as far as a quadratic function is concerned, it's pretty straightforward to find out its range. Okay, but whenever you have a reciprocal function, a rational function, that is when you have to get friendly with the domain. No, smallest value cannot be negative because the denominator is 1 over f of x plus 1. अब देखो, here's what's happened. पहले हम g में क्या plug in कर रहे थे? First we were plugging in x in function g. When you make g of f, what you're plugging in function g is function f. That means now the range of f is now equal to the domain of the function. Okay, what you're now plugging in function g is equal to the range of f. So here's what we have found the range of f to be. Okay, I repeat, g of f of x means that we are now plugging in function f in function g, which means whatever is the output of f of x is now going to become the input of this function. Okay, now, so what we're going to do is we're going to see what is the range of f of x. The range of f of x, yep, redo. Range of the inner function is equals to domain of the outer function. So what is the range of f of x? It's greater than 8. So you plug in 8, what do you get? You get 1 over 9. You plug in 10, what do you get? You get 1 over 11. You plug in 1000, what do you get? You get 1 over 1001. You plug in infinity, now see what happens. You have 1 over infinity plus 1. 1 over infinity plus 1 basically means 1 over infinity. And what happens when you divide 1 by infinity? If you divide 1 by infinity, the whole thing is equal to 0. Not exactly equal to 0, but we say that it approaches 0. Which means that the range is 1 over 9 to 0. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब एक काम आप ये भी कर सकते हैं कि आप नहीं, वैसे stick to this only. ठीक है? That will just make you more confused. I don't think that's a good idea. So just stick to this. Okay, now, what other question am I solving? What other question am I solving? Okay, let's do this. Let's do question number 21. 21 is interesting. Use it as redo, range of inner and domain of outer. Yep, that is correct. Let's do question number. Achha, 31. Okay, 31 someone requested actually a lot of times. So I'd like to do question 31. Yes, yes. Take it easy. 29, 30... 31. Okay, let's do 31. Find an expression for f inverse of x. Okay, so I'm going to give CI's first time in AS now because I gave it Excel in O level, so any tips, please. Don't forget to write your name. That's the best tip that I can give you. I don't know what expectations you had, but that's the best tip that I can give you, honestly. Find an expression for f inverse of x. Okay, so let's make it equal to y. Y equals to x square minus 4 over x square plus 4. Okay. Achha, I only solved a part of this question, not the entire function. Okay. Now let's cross multiply. So we have x square y plus 4y equals to x square minus 4. Okay. Now remember, what's our objective? Our objective is to make x the subject, and we don't have x, we actually have x square. So let's get all the terms with x square in them on one side, and let's get all the other terms across the equals to sign. So x square minus x square y. Okay? So 4y plus 4 equals to, let's take x square common, and if I do take x square common, we have 1 minus y. Okay? And then we have 4y plus 4, which is equal to 1 minus y, and that's equal to x square. Okay? Which means that now if I were to take the square root, so what will happen if I take the square root? If I take the square root, so we will have... एक सेकंड, सही क्या मैंने? सही क्या? Okay, now So at this point, what are you going to do? You're going to have plus minus, but remember, when you take the square root on both sides, you have plus minus, but remember, we have to pick one sign. Okay? So plus minus, oh yes sir, what's a t-shirt brand that you always wear? Bata deta hun chale. It's called Human. Okay, Human. This is the one that I always wear. So x equals to, so let's do the final step. The final step is f inverse of x equals square root 4x plus 4 over 1 minus x. ठीक है सर DM ही कर दें. I've been searched. बेटा बता दिया ना मैंने. It's called Human. Human. अच्छा, tell me guys, are we going to go with the plus sign or are we going to go with the minus sign? Are we going with plus or are we going with minus? Considering that the domain is x is greater than 2, okay, which means the range of the inverse function must also be greater than 2, which means the range of the inverse function is also greater than 2. बेटा मैंने कहा t-shirt बनाने वाले का थोड़ा भला हो जाएगा. I know the guy, so I thought, why not? Okay. So since the range is supposed to be greater than 2, that means we're going to go with the plus sign. ठीक हो गया? Okay, now. So this part I've already solved in the, I think I did this in the first stream when I was doing domain and range. ठीक है? So then there is part C, which says explain why composite function f of f cannot be formed. Okay, so no, it's definitely not 3000 for a shirt. I think आपने कोई गलत human खोल दिया. Let me check. Or maybe the prices have increased. No, you're probably looking at. Okay, I can't believe this that I'm doing. I can't believe I'm doing this during a live stream. कहाँ गया यार t-shirt? Terrible. No, it's not 3000 yet. I know they do have for 3000, but that's not the one I wear. Okay. Explain why the composite function f cannot be formed. So remember, for the composite function to be formed, here's how it works. The range of the inner function should be equal to the domain of the outer function. ठीक है, मैं खुद ही भूल गया मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ. Yeah, so this is the inner function, this is, वैसे तो they're both the same. ठीक है, they're both the same. So for composite function to be formed, the range of f should be equal to the domain of f. ठीक है, this is the condition. Okay, this is the condition. Okay, now let's see if that is the case. What's the range of f? The range of f, I think we found out earlier, to be between 0 and 1. Okay, so the range of f is between 0 and 1. So f of x is greater than 0 and less than 1. ठीक है? And what is the domain of f? Sorry, domain of x लिख दिया. I meant to write domain of f. What is the domain of f? The domain of f was given to us already, and that is greater than 2. Are they equal? They're not equal. Okay, so because they're not equal, that is why the composite function cannot be formed. Simple. I'll repeat. What is the condition for forming a composite function? The condition for forming a composite function is that the range of the inner function should be equal to the domain of the outer function. Okay? I repeat, the range of the inner function should be equal to the domain of the outer function. Is that the case? Is the range of the inner function equals to the domain of the outer function? Let's have a look. The range of this function f we found earlier to be between 0 and 1. Okay? And then the domain of f was given to us already, which is x is greater than 2. Okay, now they're not equal. So what does that mean? That means not possible. Okay, so this is what you're going to write. Range of f is not equal to the domain of f, therefore ff cannot be formed. That's it. Okay, remember the redo condition. Redo. Range of the inner function should be equal to the domain of the outer function. Acha, what's going on here, sir? I'm doing yearly P1 and getting about 55 and 60 roundabout. All I'm getting stuck in APGP. But I don't understand. Why can you not do both at the same time? Okay, I don't get why people have to ask this question. Should I do topicals or yearlies? I mean, if you do both, तो क्या होगा? Police ले जाएगी आपको? Is it forbidden to do both or something? No, right? So just do both. Keep doing yearlies on the side, and the topics that you're struggling with, do topicals of those. That's it. Sir, can you teach how to draw a graph of f inverse for complex functions? Tell me a question number, I'll solve. I can see someone's asked question number 21, so let's do that. Question number 21 is, yes, you make sure that you write down the last sentence, okay? You have to write a conclusive statement. Okay, so you must do that. This is October-November 2020, paper 11. Find an expression for f g of x. F g of x means that you plug in function g and function f, which simply means 2x plus 1, the whole thing square, plus 3. That's it. Sir is always going to use the police exam. Yeah, till I think of a better one. I'm going to use the police example. Okay. Find an expression for f g inverse of x and state the domain of f g inverse. Okay. So let's do that. अच्छा, इसकी range क्या होगी? चलो पहले ये करते हैं. So f g inverse of x is what we have to find, which means y is equals to 2x plus 1, the whole thing square, plus 3. Let's step by step make x the subject. So y minus 3 is equals to 2x plus 1, the whole thing square. How do you get rid of the square? You get rid of the square by taking the square root on both sides, which means 2x plus 1 equals to y minus 3, and y minus 3 with a plus minus. Y minus 3. Beta, I'll do S1, P1, M1 se Farik, okay? I'll do S1, don't worry about it. My plan is, inshallah, to finish the entire S1 syllabus. So don't worry about it. Okay? Okay, now. Here we are. The question says, find an expression for f g inverse of x. So we still haven't found the expression. So 2x is equals to plus minus square root of y minus 3, which means x is equals to, okay, minus 1, which means x is equals to square root of y minus 3 minus 1 with a plus minus sign, and then divided by 2. Okay, make sure that you make a bracket around this so that, no wait, no need to make a bracket around this. Yeah, this is good enough. Okay, now comes the final step. The final step will be f g inverse of x equals plus minus square root of x minus 3 minus 1 upon 2. Acha, up question for you guys. Are we going with the plus sign or are we going with the minus sign? Are we going with the plus sign or are we going with the minus sign? Are there going to be daily streams of P1? Yes, most likely. Okay. Yes, you can do G inverse, F inverse also. Okay. So you can also do G inverse, F inverse. Okay. Didn't you have a couch behind you? Yeah, I do have a couch behind me. Okay. Now, let's see how we will decide whether we're going with the plus sign or minus sign. I've noticed that by looking at the domain, here's how we're going to decide. Pay attention. So what is the domain of f g of x? The domain of f g of x is basically going to be equal to the range of g. Okay? Achha, range of g kya hogi? If I plug in, you can think of it this way. What are we plugging in f g of x? We're plugging in g of x. And what are we plugging in g? We're plugging in x is greater than half. So that means ultimately the values that go into f g of x are greater than half. Okay? So I repeat, f g of x basically means that since you've plugged in function g and function f, And what goes inside function g? All the values that are greater than half. That means you want these results to be greater than half also. If you want these results to be greater than half, what sign should you have? You should have a plus sign. Okay, so that is why we're going to go with the plus sign. There you go. So are you going to stream in summer break? Why would I stream in the summer break? And more importantly, what will I stream even if I did? Okay, now. Ab, we also have to state the domain of fg inverse. How will I state the domain of fg inverse? Let's see. Let's look at fg of x. What is the range of fg of x? The range of fg of x is basically greater than 3. Okay, the range of fg of x is greater than 3. So I repeat, the range of fg is greater than 3, which means that the domain of fg inverse must also be greater than 3. Okay? There you go. All right, there's more. fg of x minus 3 is equals to g of f of x. Fg of x, I think we've already done that. Yeah, that's great. So here is fg of x. Where minus 3 equals to g of f of x. So let's erase this. A2 session will start in August. I start my classes from August, registrations from July, inshallah. Okay, so we already have fg of x, okay? We just want to equate this with g of f of x. So fg of x means 2x plus 1. How did I conclude greater than 3? What is the range of fg greater than 3? What will be the domain of fg inverse? Also greater than 3. Okay? That's how I concluded. So 2x plus 1, the whole thing square plus 3. Minus 3 is equals to g of f of x, which means in function f, in function g, we're going to plug in function f. So 2 bracket open, x squared plus 3, and then the plus 1. Okay? How did I conclude the range of fg is greater than 3? Look at the function itself. Look at the function itself. Function को देख के क्या लग रहा है? ठीक है? There you go. Okay, now. So this cancels out. ठीक है? So what do you have? You have 2x plus 1, the whole thing square, equals to 2x square plus 6 plus 1. Okay? This now becomes 4x square plus 4x plus 1 equals to 2x square plus 7, which means 4x square minus 2x square, that's going to be equal to 2x square. Now, you're not supposed to show the range, but the range is what's going to help you figure out what the domain is. Okay? The range is what will help you figure out what the domain is. ठीक है? देखो मैं दोबारा बता देता हूँ. Those of you who are confused. Now, what will be the overall domain of this function? The overall domain of this function will be what you have plugged in, function f, and that is greater than minus half. ठीक है? Or you can think of it this way, that since you've plugged in function g, okay, देखो मैं दोबारा बता देता हूँ. I'll explain it again. Since you have plugged in function g and function f, then here's what happens. F of g of x now becomes this. Now becomes g square plus 3. Correct? Okay, now, what is the range of g? Let's find out. Since x is greater than half, that means the range of g will be g of minus half. Let's plug that in. 2 into minus half, that's minus 1. Minus 1 plus 1 is equals to 0. That means g is always greater than 0. So if in this function the value of g is always greater than 0, then what will be f of g of x? F of g of x will always be greater than 3. Okay, if you're plugging in a function which is always greater than 0, then f g of x will always be greater than 3. ठीक है? अच्छा, एक और चीज़ बता देता हूँ. Since you've plugged in function f, since you've plugged in function g and function f, that means the domain of function g will now be the domain of the overall function. Okay, so I repeat, since you've plugged in function g and function f, that means whatever is the output of function g is now going to be the input of function f, and the output of function g is dependent on what? Is dependent on its domain, which means x is greater than minus half. Okay, so here's another way of looking at it. Pay attention. Another way of looking at it is that इस function का domain क्या होगा? इस function का domain होगा x is greater than minus half. Now, if x is greater than minus half, if x is greater than minus half is the domain of this function, that means, nahi beta, there are no other methods. This is the way to do it. And the reason why students struggle with this is because they're always looking for a shortcut. And the sad reality is the shortcut doesn't exist. Okay? That is why students mess it up. Okay? So what will be the graph of this function like? This is what the graph of this function is going to be like. This is what the graph of fg of x is like. So if this is what the graph of fg of x is like, can you tell me the range of this function? The range of this function is greater than 3. If the range of this function is greater than 3, what will be the domain of the inverse? The domain of the inverse will also be greater than 3. That's it. Turning point, no, turning point is not affected by coefficient of x. All you have to do is whatever is inside the bracket, equate that to 0, that will give you the x coordinate of the turning point. So why do we say range of inner function has to be equal to the domain of the outer function? Should the domain of the outer function be a subset of the range of the inner function? That's the same thing. See, the domain of the inner function, now becomes the domain of the overall function. Okay? And what does domain of the inner function give you? The domain of the inner function will give you the range of the inner function. So that is why we say that the range of the inner function must be equal to the domain of the outer function. That's it. ठीक है? एक second, just give me a minute. Are we done with this question? If not, तो बस एक मिनट दो, मुझे एक चीज़ मार्क करनी है. एक सेकंड ठहरो. I know screen is stuck because I'm not doing anything. Acha. Are we done with this question? No, wait, there's more. So let's quickly finish this question, then I need a few minutes. So 2x square, then we have plus 4x minus 6 equals to 0. Let's take 2 common. So we have x square plus 2x minus 3 equals to 0, which means it's going to be x square plus 2x minus 3 equals to 0. Now we will have to do middle term breaking here. So x square plus 3x minus x minus 3 equals to 0. That means I'll take x common. So we have x plus 3. Then we will take minus 1 common. So we also have x plus 3 equals to 0, which means the two values of x are x equals to 1 or x equals to minus 3. Okay? Achha, are both the values acceptable? Let's have a look. The question says that x is greater than 0 and x is greater than minus half. So which value is acceptable? Which value falls inside the domain of both the functions? It's x equals to 1. Okay, x equals to 1 is the only acceptable answer. Okay, Achha guys, just give me 1 minute. I need to make an important call. In the meantime, I would like you guys to maybe solve transformation to nahi. Let's solve a question from recent years. Maybe let's start from the very end. Okay. Attempt this question. Okay. And just give me a few minutes. Okay, sorry about that. So what is going on? Let's see what's the answer to this question. Find an expression for f inverse of x. आप लोगों ने क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करने के बताया, बाकी सब कुछ कर लिया. अच्छा आमना आप उल्टा बोल रही हैं एफ जी ऑफ एक्स में इट्स रीडू रेंज ऑफ द इनर फंक्शन इज इक्वल्स टू द डोमेन ऑफ द आउटर फंक्शन ओके इसको रीडू से याद रखो range of the inner function is equals to domain of the outer function. This is how we decide whether it's possible to form a composite function or not. Okay? Okay, now let's solve this question. So just a second. Yeah, so this question is find an expression for f inverse of x. Let's make it equal to y. Y is equals to square root of x minus 1. Y plus 1 is equals to root x. Let's square both sides. So x is equals to y plus 1, the whole thing square. Okay, now I would prefer that I keep it as this only. There's no need to expand unless the question says so. In fact, it doesn't, yeah. So f inverse of x equals to x plus 1, the whole thing square. And that's good enough. Okay. What about M1? I did an M1 stream just before this, and I'll do another one also. State the range of G and explain whether G inverse exists. So what do you guys think will be the range of G? Yeah, I'm doing another one tomorrow, inshallah. Don't worry. Take it. Today's stream, I had to end early because of internet issues, but I'll do another one, inshallah, tomorrow. So from the graph, we can see that this is the maximum value. Okay? From the graph, we can see that this is the maximum value. What's the maximum value? The maximum value can be found when x is 0. So what is g of 0? G of 0 is equals to 1 over 0 square plus 2. That means it's simply going to be 1 upon 2. Okay, so g of 0 is equals to 1 upon 2. And what do you think will happen as x becomes larger and larger? What do you think will happen as x becomes larger and larger? So think of it this way. Think that I've plugged in infinity. So if I plug in infinity, it's going to be infinity square plus 2, which in short is going to make the denominator so large that the whole thing will approach 0. Okay? And you can see that the range is hovering between half and 0. But there is something to watch out for. There is something to watch out for. How will I write down the range of this? I will write down the range of this as g of x. Okay, tell me if this is right. Is less than 1 upon 2 and greater than 0. Say is this correct? What do you guys think? The range of g is less than half and it's greater than 0. Is this correct? What's going on here? No, this is not the last question. We'll do more questions. So functions and transformation कब तक end हो जाएगा expected? I'll probably start tomorrow or maybe day after. ठीक है. There has to be an equal to sign with half. Why? Because here the function is actually equal to half. Okay? It's not like the previous one where it's not equal to. It's not that we are plugging in a value which is not part of the domain. Okay? We're plugging in a value which is part of the domain. Okay? So that is why the range will be lesser than or equal to half greater than 0. Okay? Okay. When will you do binomial? Beta, I think I've already done binomial. Okay, let's do this. The function h is defined by h of x equals to 1 upon x squared plus 2 for x is greater than or equal to 0. Solve the equation h of f of x is equal to f of 25 over 16. अब ये फजूल का ऐसे लंबा सवाल है, इतना कोई इसमें लर्निंग है नहीं, बट चलो कर लेते हैं. ठीक है. So h of f of x means that we're going to plug in function. Wait, where is h? Oh, so there it is. So h of f of x means that in place of x, I will plug in function f. And what is function f? Function f is root x minus 1. So in place of x, I will plug in function f, which is root x minus 1. Let me double check. ऐसे है ना? Root x minus 1. Yep. And this is equal to what? This is equal to f of 25 upon 16. That means this is equal to square root of 25 upon 16 minus 1. Okay, why? Because f of x, don't forget, is equals to root x minus 1. Okay. Sir, next one is Fazul question. It's a little too long for me. Let's do it anyway. Okay. 25 upon 16 minus 1. Okay, now, Acha, don't make the mistake of expanding this. Okay, do not expand root x minus 1 the whole thing square. I think we can get rid of it. Okay, I'm not too sure. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. We'll find out. Okay. So this is equal to what? 25 upon 16 is 5 upon 4. So 5 upon 4 minus 1, that's equal to 1 upon 4. Okay. Now let's cross multiply. If I cross multiply, we have 4 bracket open. Inverse exists question? Oh, yes, yes, yes. Inverse exists. So tell me, does the inverse exist? Yes or no? Does the inverse exist? Whenever there's infinity in the denominator, the whole fraction approaches 0. We take the range to be less than 0. In that case, 1 over infinity is like 1 pizza. Yep, that is correct. Nope, inverse does not exist. Why? Because does not pass the horizontal line test. Okay, so we say G inverse does not exist. Okay, and there are multiple reasons as to why you can say that. You can say because as G is not a one-to-one function, or you can also say that it does not pass the horizontal line test. Okay. All right. Now, what's next? Yeah. So this is the question that we were solving. Yes. So this will become 4 into root x minus 1. The whole thing square, and 4 when it gets multiplied by 2, it becomes 8. And what's that equal to? That is equal to 4. Okay? No, wait a minute. I think I've... Oh, no, मैंने क्या गड़बड़ कर दी? 4 को तो multiply नहीं करना. So this remains as it is. Root x minus 1, the whole thing square plus 2 equals to 4. Yeah, now it's correct. Okay? So this is what we get after we cross multiply. Now let's step by step try to make root x minus 1 the whole thing square the subject. I repeat, do not expand it. If you expand it, you're just going to waste a lot of time. So this will be equal to 4 minus 2, which is equal to 2. Now how do you get rid of the square? You get rid of the square by taking the square root on both sides. And when you do take the square root on both sides, you have a plus minus. Okay? But when you take the square root on both sides, since you have a plus minus, let's see if we can take both, or let's see if we have to take one only. Root x minus 1 should technically be equal to plus minus under root 2. Okay? ऐसे मजे की बात, even if you take both, even if you take plus minus, what happens is, notice what happens. Even if you take plus minus, it kind of becomes meaningless. I'll explain why. Because you have plus minus under root 2 plus 1. Now how will you solve for x? You will solve for x by squaring both sides, which means once you square both sides, the plus minus you will get rid of the plus minus anyway. But the rule, that's just a coincidence. Let's figure out whether we have to take the plus or minus. Okay? So notice the question said that x is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, x is greater than or equal to 0, and here also x is greater than 1. So we have to make sure that we go with the positive value. So that's why we're going to take the plus sign. Okay? Now, how do we get rid of the square root? We get rid of the square root by taking the square on both sides. So if I do take the square on both sides, the left hand side is simply equal to root x squared, which means it is simply equal to x. The right hand side is root 2 plus 1 the whole thing squared, which we will have to expand using the identity. So it's going to be root 2 the whole thing squared plus 2 times under root 2 times 1 plus 1 squared. Yeah, I will do a syllabus run through inshallah before the exam. So x is equals to 2 plus 2 under root 2 plus 1, which means x is equals to 3 plus 2 under root 2. That's it. What did the question say? Give your answer in the form of a plus b under root c. Yep, we have done that. And that's your answer. Okay. How about no plan A or B, just directly looking at the given range? Yeah, that is plan A. That is plan A basically. Okay, let's do this question. Let's do question 46. We could apply the identity in the starting. You could, but then again, you would still have root x to deal with. Okay, you would still have root x to deal with. Yeah, I do agree. I think we do need chat moderation. Okay, let me wake up my moderator. Okay, now. Acha, what's next? What's next? So this was a Maziki question. I really enjoyed it. चलिए ये करते हैं. This also has composite function in it. Let's do that. The functions f and g are defined for all real values of x by so and so, where k is a constant. Given that the range of the function g of f is g of f of x is greater than or equal to 39, find the value of k. All right. So first of all, let's find out the function g of f of x. G of f of x. पहले ये निकालते हैं. G of f of x basically means that we take function f and we plug it in function g. Okay, let's do that. So if I do that, we have 5 bracket open. In fact, let's open up a square bracket. So 3x minus 2, the whole thing squared inside the bracket. Okay, plus k, square bracket close, and then minus 1. Okay, so what I've done is, oops, basically this was 5x minus 1. In place of x, you can see I have plugged in function f. Now let's expand this. So this will become k equals to 8. All right, let's find out. 5 into 3x minus 2, the whole thing square, plus 5k minus 1. Now looking at this function, we can see that this is a quadratic function, and by looking at its y coordinate of the turning point, we can tell that its range will be greater than or equal to 5k minus 1. Why? Because it's a minimum function, right? We can see that it's a minimum function, and the range of this function, by looking at how it is in completed square form, can be said that it's going to be greater than or equal to 5k minus 1. Okay? And according to the question, the range of g of f of x is actually equal to what? Is actually greater than or equal to 39, which means अच्छा बेटा आप लोगों ने लड़ना है ना, तो एक काम करें, आराम से कहीं जाके लड़ें, ठीक है, यहाँ पे ना लड़ाई करें. So yes, I'm afraid I'll have to do something about it. There you go. Okay, now, so g of f of x is greater than or equal to 39. Okay. Now, they're both equal, which means 5k minus 1 is equal to 39, which means 5k equals to 40, which means k equals 8. There we go. Okay. So does the type of bracket we give matter? No. How did we get 5k minus 1? 5 will get multiplied by k, so that's 5k, and then you have a minus 1 over here. Okay. And when you look at this, when you observe this, you will notice that this looks like something. This looks like a quadratic function in completed square form, okay, where the y coordinate of the turning point is 5k minus 1. If you start A2 session in August, when will you be done with portion? A2 starts in August, and we will complete P1. We'll complete P3 by December. That's how it is. And then we will do we'll do M1 and S1. Okay? It's not going to be 5k minus 5, guys. It's not going to be 5k minus 5. 5 only gets multiplied by k, not by minus 1. No, we're not supposed to find out the range of k. We're just supposed to find out the value of k. Okay? And the range of this function will be greater than or equal to 5k minus 1, which is equal to 39. So the value of k will be equal to 8. Okay? In fact, I think if you write greater than or equal to k, it will actually penalize you. What question number was this? I think it was 48. 48 though? No, there is no 48. I think it was 45, yeah, 44. Yeah, 44. Obtain k equals to 8. Let's see. Yeah, see, it says do not accept k is greater than or equal to 8. Okay, so please do not write k is greater than or equal to 8. You must equate the y coordinate of the turning point with 39, and that is how you're going to get the answer. Okay. Acha ji. So let's go back to the question. It was 44. Yeah. For this value of k, determine the range of the function fg. Okay, so what will be the range of this function fg for this value of k? For this value of k, the range of the function fg will be, acha, fg, not gf. Why I was wondering, the range de bhi di or mang bhi raha. So fg means that we'll actually have to find out the function fg. Okay, so let's do that. Let's find out the function fg. Fg means that we plug in function g and function f. Okay, so if I plug in function g and function f, here's what we get. Square bracket 3 bracket 5x minus 1 bracket close minus 2 square bracket close. So this is 3x basically. Okay, this is 3x minus 2 the whole thing square, and then plus k. And what's the value of k? K is equal to 8. Okay. So my sir told me we can, yeah, you should. It's not that we can, you should draw a box so that it's easy for the examiner to identify where your answer is. Okay. Now this is what we're looking at. We're looking at 3 times 5, which is equal to 15x minus 3 minus 2 the whole thing square. Although this is irrelevant. Why? Because look at this function and tell me what will be the range of this. This is going to be 15x minus 5 the whole thing square plus 8. Okay, अब इसकी range क्या होगी? Considering that we can plug in all real values. Okay, considering that x belongs to the set of all real values. Why? Because that was given to us over here. So we can plug in all real values, and if I can plug in all real values, that means g of x can also take all real values. Okay, since it's a straight line. So what will be the range of this? The range of this will be f of g is greater than or equal to 8. Okay, not just greater than or equal to. Highlighter isn't allowed, by the way, you can do it with pen. Yeah, not greater than or equal to 8. Okay, don't just leave it at greater than, it has to be greater than or equal to. Okay, now there's more. Greater than or equal to, why? Because 8 is the y coordinate of the turning point. That means it is reaching that point, so we need to include it. Okay, that's all for today. What time is it? It's 11:02. Let's keep going. Part C. Doesn't Sir Zain have a stream right now? Because I was thinking I'll stop when he starts. Does he have a stream tonight? Yes or no? Not today. He does. अच्छा बेटा वो सुपर स्टार्ट्स को मैंने सिर्फ 24 आवर्स के लिए लिमिट किया है, कल वो आ जाएगा तो आप वापस से गपशप शुरू कर लीजिएगा. अच्छा, let me know when he starts, okay? So when he starts, I will stop. The function h is defined for all real values of x such that g, he's not streaming? Okay. G of h of x equals to 35x plus 19. Find an expression for g inverse of x, hence or otherwise, find an expression for h of x. Okay, this is interesting. G inverse of x का हमें expression चाहिए. अच्छा, हमें क्या दिया हुआ है? The function f दिया हुआ है और function g दिया हुआ है. So first of all, let's find an expression for g of x, or g inverse of x. Okay, that's a no-brainer. Let's do that. So g inverse of x is equal to, is what we have to find. Okay, so that means y is equals to 5x minus 1. That means y plus 1 upon 5 is what x is equal to. That means g inverse of x, let's erase this, just taking unnecessary space. So g inverse of x equals x plus 1 upon 5. X plus 1 upon 5. Okay? So we found an expression for g inverse of x. Hence or otherwise, obtain an expression for h of x. Okay, this is a nice question. This is a nice question, and it's actually one of a kind. I mean, I haven't seen such questions. So tell me, how will I find out h of x? Considering that I have g inverse of x and also considering that we have g of h of x. How will I find out h of x? ठीक है, ये जवाब दें, तब तक मैं ज़रा एक आध मैसेज कर रहा हूँ. That is correct. If I take g across the equals to sign, it will become inverse. That is correct. Good job, guys. So if I take the function g across the equals to sign, it will become g inverse. Okay? So that means h of x is actually now equal to g inverse, but don't get carried away, it's just equal to g inverse. It's actually equal to g inverse of 35x plus 19. Okay? Which means h of x is equal to 35x plus 19 plugged into the function of g inverse. Which means g inverse is x plus 1 upon 5, so that means 35x plus 19 plus 1 upon 5. Okay, now let's simplify. 19 plus 1 is 20. So that means we have h of x equals to 35x plus 20 upon 5, and divide every term in the numerator separately by 5. So here's what you get. 35 upon 5 equals to 7. So that's 7x plus 20 upon 5. What's that equal to? That's equal to 4. So that means h of x equals to 7x plus 4. Okay, so I repeat. What happens when you take a function across the equals to sign? What happens when you take a function across the equals to sign? Like, for example, go back to the days, not to the days, actually, this is still something that we do. If sine x equals to 0.5, what happens when you take sine across the equals to sign? It becomes sine inverse. Okay? So just like that, if I take g across the equals to sign, it will become g inverse. And g inverse of what? G inverse of 35x plus 19. Now, if you take sine inverse across the equals to sign to solve for x, it will become sine inverse of 0.5. That means you will plug in 0.5 into the inverse function. Here also, it means that you will plug in 35x plus 19 into the inverse function. So that's what I did. Where is g inverse of x? Here it is. So in place of x, I plugged in 35x plus 19. And then plus 1 as it is, upon 5 as it is, and then simplified, and we got h of x. This is question number 44. Okay? All right, let's see if there is any other question that I can solve. State the domain, state the range. Easy expression for h inverse. Okay, ये कर लेते हैं. ये वापस से वो composite function वाली चीज़ आ गई. ये कर लेते हैं, फिर इसके बाद end करते हैं. ठीक है? Okay, now, do we always use greater than equal to for minimum quadratic graph? Yes, of course, but then again, who is this? Aqib Leela. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Don't just memorize, understand the concept. The concept is your reason why you're using greater than or equal to is because it's reaching that point. If it's reaching that point, that means it's equal to that value, and every other value is greater than that. Therefore, we use greater than or equal to. Okay, acha beta, we don't have such, I can't think of any more such questions, so that is why I'm only going to solve that one question, but if I do come across another question, I will solve that also. Okay, now, please don't forget my question. What was your question, Aliza? Tell me if that question is part of this PDF. If it is, tell me the question number. Now, okay. 4x square minus 12x plus 13 in the form of 2x plus a, the whole thing square plus b. Why plug in, not multiply? Because it says g inverse of so and so. So g inverse of so and so means that you will plug it in. Like, for example, if you have to do sine inverse of 0.5, you don't multiply sine inverse in 0.5. That doesn't make sense. So for the same reason, you will not multiply g inverse with that. You'll plug it in. So if I take 4 common, we have x square minus 3x. Redo is for the formation of composite function. Okay, redo tells you whether you can form that composite function or not. Okay, so what do I need to do here? I need to do plus 1.5 squared. That means I need to do minus 1.5 squared. So this part of the expression now becomes x minus 1.5 square. Okay. Sorry, x minus 1.5 squared. And then you have a minus 1.5 squared, which is 2.25. Don't forget that there is a 4 here. And don't forget that there is a minus 13 over here. Okay. So x minus 1.5, the whole thing square, minus what is 4 into 2.25? Why decimal? Why not? What is 3 divided by 2? It's 1.5. So minus 2.25 into 4, that's minus 9, minus 13, that's minus 22. So that means what we're looking at is this. Oh, the question has 2x written. Oh, okay. I did not read the question. ठीक है, because the question has 2x plus a. तो कोई बात नहीं. Bear with me. We can still turn it into that form. ठीक है. We can still turn it into that form. No problem. So can we वैसे? Yeah, we can. We can take it inside and it will become 2. अच्छा, एक काम करते हैं. यहाँ पे ना comparison वाला method use कर लेते हैं. Let's use comparison. Yeah, I was thinking the same, but I think that's going to get complicated. ठीक है. So let's use the comparison method instead. So 4x square minus 12x plus 13 is identical to, now let's expand this. You will have 4x square plus 4ax plus a square plus b. Okay. Now, if I compare, we have 4x square on the right, 4x square on the left, does not really help us in finding out the value of a or b for that matter. Minus 12 is equals to 4a. So if 4a is equals to minus 12, that means a is equals to minus 3. Okay. Then let's compare the constant. So the constant on the right is a square plus b is equals to the constant on the left, which is 13. That means a square plus b is equals to 13. So what is a? A is minus 3, which we square it, plus b is equals to 13. That means b is equals to 13 minus 9, which is equal to 4. Okay. Now, let's see what is next. What is next is this. How do you know completing square? Completing square beta is the backbone of quadratics, so, and also equation of circles. So you must know completing square. So here we are. This now looks like 2x minus 3, the whole thing square plus 4. That's it. Job done. Wait, sir, would that method be wrong? Which method? That method, the method that I was initially going to do and then I abandoned, is not wrong. It's just that it's going to become very lengthy and complicated. Okay. Now, just give me 1 minute. Okay, now let's do part B. Part B says the function f is defined by f of x equal to 4x square minus 12x plus 13. For x is greater than p and less than q, where p and q are constants, the function g is defined by g of x equals to 3x plus 1 for x is less than 8. Given that it is possible to form the composite function gf, find the least possible value of p and the greatest possible value of q. Okay. Now, how do we make sure that we can form the composite function? So can I do then multiply? Yes, you can do that. You can do that. आपको 2 को अंदर लेके जाना पड़ेगा, so it's going to become 4. You will basically see 4 is outside because you took the square of it. ठीक है? And yes, you will multiply them, so you'll have 2x minus 3, that is correct. Yeah, 2x minus 3, the whole thing square, that is also correct. Okay. Now, so the question says, given that it is possible to form the composite function gf, find the least possible value of p and the greatest possible value of q. So the function that we're talking about is gf. Okay, the concept that we apply is redo. which means the range of the inner function should be equal to the domain of the outer function. So this is the inner function. Its range should be equal to the domain of G. Okay, so I repeat. The range of the inner function should be equal to the domain of the outer function. Okay, so I repeat. The range of the inner function, which is f, should be equal to the domain of the outer function. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब let's see part B. So the range of the inner function means that I think we've already figured out the range of the inner function. Here it is. Yeah. So this is the function itself. अच्छा, इसकी range क्या होगी? We can't figure that out because we don't know what is P and what is Q. Okay, no problem. But what do we want this to be equal to? We want this to be equal to the domain of the outer function. That means we want this to be less than 8. Yeah, that is correct. So the range of the inner function will basically be decided by the function itself. That means 2x minus 3, the whole thing square plus 4. Okay, so this is the range of the inner function. ठीक है, मैं यहाँ पे लिख देता हूँ. This is the range of f. This is, how much space do we have? We have plenty of space, I hope, yeah. So this is the range of f. Okay, now because we don't have a specific range of f, we'll take the entire function itself. Okay, the range of f, do we write redo? It's a good idea to do so. Okay, it's something that will help you understand exactly what you need to do. This must be equal to what? This must be equal to the domain of G. Now what is the domain of G? The domain of G is x is less than 8. So that means the range of the inner function, which is f, must be equal to the domain of the outer function. That means we set this less than 8. That's it. Okay, so I repeat, range of the inner function. Now we don't have a value of the range. That means we need to take the entire function. Okay, the function's range is the entire function itself. Now I want the output of this function, which is the range, to be equal to the domain of G. And how will I make sure of that? I will make sure that it's less than 8. Okay, so I repeat, range of f, range of the inner function equals to domain of G. अब इस फंक्शन की रेंज हम कहीं से बता सकते हैं? If we don't know what P and Q is, no, we can't tell. We can't figure out what the range of this function is since we don't know what is the domain. So that means the range of the function will be the function itself. So here's the function, and we have to make sure that it's less than 8. Okay, so I repeat, range of f, that means f must be equal to the domain. So that means it has to be less than 8. Simple. Why us it an inequality instead of equals to sign this time? No, it's always an inequality. Okay, it's always an inequality. It's never equal to. Okay, it's always inequality. So yeah, chalo, even if let's say you do put an equals to sign, okay, then ultimately what you want are the two values of x, which will be the value of p and the value of q. Okay, so 2x minus 3, the whole thing square, is less than 4. Okay, now you can expand this and then do it, or you can just take the square root on both sides and then do it. Okay, so let's take the square, let's actually expand it and then do it. So this will become 4x square minus 2 into 3 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12x, 12x plus 9 minus 4 is less than 0. So that means we're looking at 4x square minus 12x plus 5 equals to 0. So factors of 20 that leave us with minus 12, which means 4x square minus 10x minus 2x plus 5. So this is less than 0. So we'll take 2 along with x common. So we have 2x minus 5. Then we will take minus 1 common. So we also have 2x minus 5. For a second, let's assume this is not a quadratic inequality, but rather a quadratic equation. So we get the two values of x, which are half, and the other value of x is 5 upon 2. Okay, now remember what we're solving is basically a quadratic inequality. Okay, and we're solving it for less than 0. Okay, so this is half and this is 5 upon 2. That means the range of x is greater than half and less than 5 upon 2. Okay, less than 5 upon 2. So what is the value of p? The value of p, this is what the question said. X is greater than p and less than q. So what's the value of p? P is half. And what's the value of q? Q is equals to 5 upon 2. There you go. Okay. Sarsad, isn't kya? 2x minus 3 the whole thing squared. Beta kya ho gaya? What happened to the identity? I hope you're joking. Okay. Whenever you have a minus b the whole thing squared, it's got to be a square minus 2ab plus b square. Acha, matlab if we take a square root, it won't change. No, if you take a square root, it won't change, but there's got to be a plus minus, and you have to solve with that plus minus. So I don't recommend that you solve an inequality by taking the square root on both sides. I would recommend quadratic inequality. I would recommend that you do it by क्या बोलते हैं, expanding it. ठीक है, चलें. So I'm gonna keep it till here only, guys. I will stop here. We'll pick this up inshallah in the next stream. अच्छा wait a minute, October November 2025 का किसी ने बोला था, वो solve कर लेते हैं. कौन सा था? QP12. Was it QP12? किसने बोला था? If you're there, please remind me again. Okay, so then I'll include that question inshallah in the next stream. ठीक है, अभी आज फिर इसको यहीं तक रखते हैं. We will inshallah pick this up in the next stream. I think I'll most likely do. So draw over the barcodes. We don't. Yeah, you're right. Actually, I should draw over the barcodes. Next time I'll do that. October November 2025, paper 12, question number 9. चलो, I'll solve this in the next stream when I'm doing transformation. तब मुझे remind कराना, ठीक है? So I will stop here. I will pick this up inshallah in the next stream, which is going to be on transformation. But remind me in the beginning. I'll solve this question also, ठीक है? So take care everyone. Allah Hafiz.